A, we love math. A, we love math. A, every time we divide, we already know the path. A, then we multiply. All we gotta do is roll the die. A.
Hey math lovers, let's go over 1.53, solving quadratic equations with complex solutions. And we've been using this method called square root method, and in our next section we'll talk about this completing the square idea. Okay, 1.53, let's go ahead and do this example with me. 2x squared minus 92x plus 1058 equals negative 72. Let's do the same thing we've been doing. Let's go ahead and factor the left side. This is our A, this is our B, and this is our C. So we're going to need A times C. Now, these numbers are really large. And so something I notice is these are all even numbers. So watch what we can do with even numbers. Let's divide the whole expression by 2. Watch this. X squared minus 46x plus 529 equals 2 times negative 36. And if I divide by 2, then these 2's will cancel. So then you're left with this smaller quadratic equation. And why does this work? Because those two little dots we were trying to find on the parabola, like this, those two dots what we're trying to find pretty much stays the same. Okay, so look for a GCF, greatest common factor, or in some ways that's just kind of like dividing both sides by 2, the whole expression. Okay, so now you notice that these numbers are a lot smaller and easier to work with, where A is 1, B is a negative 46, and C is 529. So A times C, 1 times 529 is 529. B value is negative 46. We've been using this trick. Let's see if the trick works. If you take half of 46, you'll get what? 23. So let's see if this works. You can also take the square root of 529, and it's also 23, and it has worked so far. So this will be negative 23x. They will always go here on the bottom left and the top right, always. 1x squared and 529. Let's go ahead and take the greatest common factor. Going this direction, they have an x in common. In this direction, they have a negative 23 in common. Going up here, they have an x in common. And in this direction, they have a negative 23 in common. Remember, you can always multiply to check your answer. X times x equals x squared, or 1x squared. X times negative 23 gives me negative 23x. X times negative 23 gives me negative 23x. And negative 23 times negative 23 gives me 529. Okay, now that I know that it is x minus 23, x minus 23, and you have 2 of these expressions, right? So now you can write x minus 23 squared. And the whole point of us doing this was to do this square root method. I like to put the index there to remind me I'm looking for identical pairs. Okay, so this 2, 2, and the right equal sign are gone. They are opposites. So x minus 23 equals, remember I just took the square root, so I must do this plus or minus. That is called the square root property. Now, the factors of negative 36 are negative 1 and 36. And over here, this will simplify to the square root of negative 1. What do pirates say? I. And the square root of 36 is 6. Now I'm going to add 23. And you'll notice I'm putting the 23 to the left of the plus or minus. To the left. To the left. To the left. So now I have 23 plus or minus 6i. Now, that looks really funny, doesn't it? But that is called a complex solution. You have the real and the imaginary there. Remember, if you ever wanted to split it, you can do something like 23, that doesn't look really nice, 23 plus 6i, that's one solution, 23 minus 6i is the other solution. Okay, complete 3 of these, and then go ahead and skip 3 problems. Solve each equation by using square root property, and then go ahead and press play when you want to do these step by step with me. Alright, let's try down our equal sign. You'll notice that each of these numbers are even, so we can make these smaller. 2 times x squared. So what I'm doing here is a method called taking the greatest common factor. I'm taking each of these numbers and dividing it basically by 2. And what I can do now is divide both sides by 2. If I do properties of equality, says if I do it to one side, I do it to both sides. So now we're just left with x squared minus 10x plus 25. Now, here's a nice thing about math, is if you use 2x squared minus 20x plus 25 and use the x method factor, you'll still get the two same binomials. So math is very forgiving, is what I wanted to say. Okay, let's go ahead and put that into our box. There's our A, B, and C. A times C is 25. My B value is negative 10. We've been talking about how you basically take the B value and split it. That would be negative 5 and negative 5. Why does that work? Because this will be a negative 5x, negative 5x. Combine those together, you get negative 10x. They will always go here and here. This one will always go right here. And this one always goes here. Hopefully these different colors help you so that you use the same thing. Let's go ahead and take now the greatest common factor of this row. That would be an x minus 5, x, and a minus 5. Uh-oh, see my mistake. I saw it. This should be a negative 64. Alright, so I have 2 of these, x minus 5 squared equals negative 64. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Gone, gone, gone. So x minus 5 equals, don't forget the plus or minus. Notice I'm leaving some space there between there and the equal sign. The factors of square root of negative 64 are negative 1 and 64. And then this will read, this becomes I, And then this one becomes two numbers, identical numbers that multiply to be 64 are 8. And then I just want to add 5 here. Remember, this goes to the left, to the left, to the left. X equals 5 plus or minus 8i is our answer. Remember, that's two solutions there. Let me double check my answer with the solution key here. This is number 13, and that is correct. Okay, number 14. Again, notice that these are all evens, so I'm going to factor out a 2. So 2 times x squared minus 12x plus 36. And remember, you can always check your answer. You can always check your answer by just distributing, and you get the answer above. Does that make sense? That's really what factoring is. It's kind of like the opposite of distributing or multiplying. Okay, so now we'll divide both sides by 2. X squared minus 12x plus 36. And I'm going to go ahead and factor that. And I got my A, B, C's. So A times C is 36. My B value is negative 12. You can think of the factors, but we've been doing these square root problems, and these are called perfect square trinomials, where basically you take half of the B value, which is what? Negative 6. And that works. Negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36, and negative 6 plus negative 6 is negative 12. We're splitting this term, so we're going to add an x here. You have 1x squared. This will always go on the top left, and this one will always go on the bottom right. Always. Greatest common factor in this direction is an x. Negative 6, x, negative 6. So I have x minus 6, x minus 6. You have two of those expressions. And now we can do the square root method. And again, I write that too, so I can show you that this exponent is canceled by the green. Does that make sense? And so we are left with x minus 6. Remember, every time you take a square root of an equation, so taking a square root on both sides, you must have this plus or minus. You must. The factors of negative 81 are negative 1 times 81. And what do pirates say? They say I. And then just add the 6 in front. So you have 6 plus or minus 9i is your answer. All right, let's go on to number 15. Let's do the same thing. All right, all these are divisible by 2. So one way of thinking about it is just all this, right? Dividing both sides by 2 is the same thing as this. I'm writing it out so you can see it. This would leave you with just x squared plus 14x plus 49 equals negative 100. And if you factor that, so a times c is 49, b value is 14. That'll leave you 7 and 7, add an x, just splitting this one, so 7x, x squared, and this one, 49, goes here. Greatest common factor, here, and here. So essentially you'll get x plus 7 squared. Now it's isolated, so we could do the square root method. Those are gone. Remember, this breaks down to the square root of -1 times 100, which is 10i. Square root of -1 is I, square root of 100 is 10, and just subtract 7. You're going to get x equals -7 plus or minus 10i. And that's our answer. Number 16, I like to draw a line down the equal sign. Okay, this is nice because it's already, what? There is no greatest common factor. 1, -8, 16, and -36, they all have to be evens or they all have to be odds in some ways so you can find a greatest common factor, but they don't. So this is nice. A, B, and C. So A times C is going to be 16. This is B value is going to be a -8. Half of -8 is -4. Now this is only working because we already know it's going to be a perfect square trinomial. Don't forget to add an x there. And this becomes 1x squared, 16. Greatest common factor going in this direction is x. This one is -4. This one is x and -4. Now when you have two of those, you just write them with a squared. And now we can take the square root of both sides. Now remember, don't forget your plus or minus, plus or minus. I'm going to add 4 here, and we can just clean this all up. X equals 4 plus or minus 6i. Alright, let's try number 17. Big numbers, big numbers. Let's all divide this by 3. And let's see what we get here. That becomes x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals -3, 1, 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Let's go ahead and factor this. So that would be 16 and 8. So that will give you 4 and 4. To figure out the shortcut here. Still not going to tell you. X squared always goes in the top left. That's this value. 16 goes down here. Take the greatest common factor as x. 4, x, 4. So you're going to get x plus 4 twice. And you take the square root of both sides, because it's isolated. Get your plus or minus. Remember that is just going to become 6i. And then subtract 4. And the last one. Remember, it is divisible by 3. And we divide by 3 on both sides. You're going to get x squared squared minus 8x plus 16 equals negative 121. Let's go ahead and factor. This will give you A, B, C. A times C is 16. B is negative 8. Half of that is negative 4. Splitting this term. So now I have x, negative 4, negative x, and negative 4. So you have two of these expressions. Now you can take the square root. X minus 4 equals negative 1 times 1 square root of 121 and the plus or minus. So I add 4. Remember, adding 4 goes to the left. 4 plus or minus 11i is our answer. And that was a 1.53 solving quadratic equations with complex solutions. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Remember not to write all your math papers in ink. Remember to show all your work if you don't want to see. Remember to test, stay, and prepare for it wholly. Because if you don't, then you'll perform poorly.